Help support the show by joining the Patreon or becoming a YouTube member. Also, hit that like button and subscribe if you want more Browns-focused content. So Myles Garrett got in front of reporters on Friday, and he's already kind of come out and said he doesn't want to be a part of a rebuild. He doesn't want to rebuild. But he was much more explicit about that this Friday when he talked to reporters. And I actually like that Myles is doing that. I'll explain that in a little bit, but let's get into what Myles Garrett actually said. So I have the quotes right here in front of me. Myles Garrett said he wants to be a Cleveland Brown for the rest of his career, but he has no interest in a rebuild. If we choose to do a rebuild, it's 2, 3, 4 years out. I want to be able to compete at a high level, play meaningful games, and play past January. Garrett said absolutely he wants to know what the plan is for the Browns quarterback in order to contend next year. This is something that people might hear, react to, and because it's Cleveland and we have worries about being able to keep our best players because nonstop, national media always tries to play with that string with you, right? Oh, Donovan Mitchell don't want to be here. This guy don't want to be here, right? Myles is fine being in Cleveland. He likes Cleveland. The issue isn't Cleveland. The issue is, hey, what position are they going to put Myles Garrett in the future? And are they going to waste Myles Garrett's time away? And look, he's not saying we got to have a championship team. He just wants to play meaningful football in January. He doesn't want to go his whole career and play 1 or 2 playoff games in it. And I think this is a good thing for the Browns, right? The reason I think that this is a good thing for the Browns is the one thing this franchise has not had a ton of is pressure to not fall into the cycle of rebuilding, right? Because every couple of years, the Browns rebuild. There's nobody on the roster who really cares. Like when Joe Thomas was here, Joe Thomas would do anything that was told of him to do, right? Joe Thomas wasn't really going to question the status quo or use his leverage to kind of make the status quo something that he felt like would be better for the team in the long term. And that's just kind of how Joe rocked. And there are pros to that and there are cons to that. The cons to that is that when you are going through that much turnover, Joe is not going to be willing to use his leverage to do something to stop all of the turnover, which means you just keep going through all of the turnover. And not saying Joe Thomas is the reason he never played in a playoff game, but not being able or not having a presence in the building that kind of dissuade folks from moving around so many players and moving around so many GMs is part of the reason why the Browns haven't had continuity. Myles Garrett most certainly has that leverage. Myles Garrett certainly has that sway. He is the franchise player of the Cleveland Browns. When you think of the Browns, you think of him. Maybe you think of Nick Chubb, but most people think of Myles Garrett, right? I'm not saying who your favorite player on the Browns is. I'm just saying that's who the franchise player. It's undoubted that it's Myles Garrett. And you know what? To give him credit, he's carried himself like that for a very long time. Ever since he smacked Mason Rudolph in the head with that helmet, and feel about that however you want to feel about that. I don't really feel that much negativity about whatever happened with him and Mason Rudolph. But ever since that suspension, ever since he's come back from that, Myles has carried himself like the leader of the team, like a franchise player. He plays through a ton of injuries, no matter what the record is. This is not the first time that he's played through an injury and the record was bad, right? People advocated that Myles should shut it down at the beginning of the season when he was working through an Achilles injury because the Browns' record was 1-5. He never did. He played through it. No matter what, he played through all of that, right? When you watch Hard Knocks and when you watch the most recent episode, you can see Myles out there saying like, hey, man, this offense ain't doing what it needs to do, right? He's taking a larger role in this team. And I think that's something that the Browns need is the people in this locker room to stand up for what it is that they have built and what it is that they can build going forward. Because if nobody does that, you're constantly rebuilding. So if you want continuity in the building, this is a step in the right direction. Because if you're not rebuilding, you're not firing your coach, you're not firing your GM. That's all rebuilding stuff. And Myles Garrett looks at the possibility of that and says, absolutely not. I'm at the end of my contract in a couple of years. I'm not about to do that. And I think that's right. Like, if the Browns decide they're going to have a 4-year window, I don't blame Myles for saying, okay, well, I got to go at that point. Because that would be ridiculous to expect Myles Garrett to wait until he's, 30-something years old to compete again and play meaningful football. I think what's important for the Cleveland Browns and what's important to remember is that you can do two things at once, right? If you're the Cleveland Browns, you can be a competitive football team and still rebuild the parts of this team that you need to rebuild. You don't have to ship everybody off to fix one part of the team. Right now, the Browns need a better run defense, and they need better execution on a consistent basis at quarterback. The quarterback thing is going to take a little while, right? But just because you're figuring out the quarterback position does not mean that you have to be a bad team. I wonder if the response from the building to Myles is like, okay, are you willing to take a little bit less money in the first 2 years of your deal? A little bit less guaranteed money so we can more easily skirt around this Watson contract, right? I'm sure Myles doesn't expect the Browns to make 1 million splash signings in free agency, but what I think Myles wants the Browns to do is sufficiently address the offensive side of the ball in the offseason, include him in solutions for what the quarterback position is going to be. Because if you're Myles, you have seen this position go back, forth, back, forth, back, forth, back, forth in just your 9 years here. And it's crazy to think about it, but Myles Garrett is in his 9th season as a Cleveland Brown. Are we that old? Oh, my God. Well, he came in the league in 2017? Nah, it ain't 9 yet, right? It's like 8. Okay. Okay. The article right here that I was reading, it said 9. And that's what threw me off. All right. But nonetheless, Myles Garrett, it doesn't have 1 million years left in his career, right? He has a finite time to reach the goals that he wants to. And Myles Garrett wants to be talked about as one of the greatest of all time. And he knows that he's not going to get to the greatest of all time status if he doesn't get multiple opportunities in his career, tons of opportunities in his career to play playoff football. I get why Myles is putting the pressure on the organization, and I think the pressure is a good thing. This organization, since 1999, has been operating pressure-free. I think pressure is a little bit of a good thing, especially when it's from a star player. Hell, you want to know when the Cavs did some of their best work, when they won their championship, when LeBron was adding constant pressure to that front office. Like, that's what you need to do. If the organization is leaning towards doing something that you don't mess with, say something about it. Do something about it. Make sure that they don't go in that direction, because now they're going to think twice. You know, if Jimmy wants to do something impulsive, it's not just, oh, let's fire Kevin, let's fire AB. It's also, hey, you might piss off your franchise player, and then you don't have that guy. And if you have to get rid of that guy or you lose that guy, oh, that changes everything. So now you're built in to not be victim, like the Browns have been since 99, to so much reactionary thinking from the ownership position that you're not going to make the same decisions, hopefully. Right? Now, what's Myles' thought process about quarterback? What kind of quarterbacks is Myles? Like, should Myles Garrett be the general manager of the team, basically, and pick the next quarterback of the Cleveland Browns? I don't think that should be the case. But should Myles Garrett be involved in that process? Yes. Myles Garrett should be involved. He should know what's going down. He should know what the team is trying to do. He should see what the team is trying to do and make sure that these are things that he approves of. And if there are things that he wants the team to do, and those are things that cannot be done, it's important for him to be at the table so that can be explained to him why it can't be done properly and showed to him why it can't be done, so he's not frustrated about these things. It's been a while since the Browns have had a star player. Myles Garrett is undoubtedly a star player at a star position. And one of the benefits of having a star player is that it puts pressure on your organization to not just win, but also to make moves that are going to make that player happy. And those are usually moves that help you win football games. And I know it's my new favorite saying, but you're never as good as you think you are in the NFL, and you're never as bad as you think you are in the NFL, right? Teams go from where the Browns are to where the Browns were last year all the time, and vice versa. You're never but a couple of things going wrong from having a really bad season in the NFL, and you're never more than a couple of things going right from having a really good season in the NFL. This happens all the time, right? It's so easy to get caught up in what's going on right now and think that the Browns could never be good again and that we're going to suck for the next 20 years because it's all we know. But that's not all that's there, right? There is more there for NFL teams. And just as bad as the Browns are right now, they make a couple of moves. Maybe they get lucky in the next draft or two at quarterback and they get a guy at the position, then this is going to feel like a distant memory. So keep that in mind when we're talking about the Browns making moves. It doesn't have to be super linear progress, right? And oftentimes progress isn't linear. This is going to be a real test of Andrew Berry. A lot of people questioning whether he's good or bad at his job. I think the verdict's still out on him, but this offseason will be a good read on that, right? Because his back's going to be against the wall this offseason. Now, do I want Myles Garrett to be full LeBron and start like trying to be GM and all of that? Like, no, that's not a good idea. But Myles should put pressure on the organization, right? Because he's in the position to put pressure on the organization. If he doesn't want to see his head coach get fired, if he doesn't want to see his GM get fired, he has a say in that because he's Myles Garrett and they're going to want to make him happy. So if you look at things and you want to see how things can be different, how the Browns can bounce back from this miserable season and not fall into the same since 99 traps that this franchise has always fallen into, that's something right there. We have a player now who is willing to provide pushback on the rebuild narrative, on the idea that you need to fire everybody, on the idea that you need to throw everything out. Now, what does this mean for quarterback? I don't know. Myles might be somebody who thinks Deshaun still got it. I find it hard to believe, but maybe that's what he's thinking. Oh, we don't want to give up on Deshaun Watson. If that's the case, that's a sword that's a hill he got to die on himself. Because I don't think that's the appropriate way to go about it. But Myles has been as frustrated about the offense as we have. We've seen him on Hard Knocks, on Mic'd Up, talking after these games, bringing up the offense, right? Bringing up things that he's frustrated with, specifically saying that there was dysfunction at the beginning of the season. Like, he understands the offensive issues that are leaking into the defensive side now. And he knows that what has been going on the offensive side of the ball has not been sufficient. And in the last couple of years, he's seen better from other guys who are not Deshaun Watson. Hey, if Myles Garrett putting his foot down is another thing, another bit of pressure that is necessary to put on this front office and ownership especially to move on from the Watson era, to not fire everybody just because that's what we've always done, to handle failure in a different way than this franchise has handled failure since 99, and hopefully get a different result. Because again, it's insanity. We've been responding to failure and disappointment in Cleveland the same way for like 20 plus years. We've been, bad season, fire the coach, rebuild every 2 years. Every time there's a disappointing season, like clockwork. We've been doing that for over 20 years. It is insanity to think that that's going to work if we do it for a 21st time, right? Let's try something different, and hopefully Myles is putting pressure on the organization to try something different. So, and also on the coaching staff too. Like, this isn't just on Jimmy Haslam and the organization and Andrew Berry. He's putting pressure on the coaching staff. Because he's saying to them, hey, stop wasting my time. Like, start winning. We need to win now, right? Because he's not going to tolerate another losing season. So there's pressure on everybody to do better. And I think that's a good thing for the organization. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Y'all have a great day. Have a better night. Peace.